Welcome to this short training on dashboards and virtual sensors and math functions on EcoStruxure IT Expert. Here's my agenda. Short introduction to the dashboards, what it is and what it is not. Then I have created a number of use cases where I see some valuable functionality on the dashboards, what you can do, and I'll walk you through how to recreate those use cases. They will also illustrate some of the strengths in the dashboards. Then I have some tips and tricks and some housekeeping rules I hope we can agree on. So how to create a dashboard? Really simple. Go to a location, click on New and the top bar. We'll do that in a minute. Specify the default time span for the dashboard. So this is just the time span it will hold when we open up the dashboard. We can change it later on. For now it goes back 1 week. I think we can expect we will be able to do a larger time span in the future. Then we have to add at least one widget on our dashboard, and I will get back to what a widget are, but it is basically a thing on the dashboard that shows something. So we can select to show just a single sensor value. We can select to show a sum on average or a graph. And then when that is done, we can select how large that widget should be and where it should be placed on our dashboard. And then it can look something like this, right? So that's the basic about the dashboards. And then I try to create some use cases just to walk through the major functionality of the dashboards. So the first thing I came up with is just a single sensor value. So what is the current runtime on my UPS, right? So that might be something that I want to show on a dashboard. So let's take a look at how that can look like. So I'll go to my EcoStruxure IT Expert coding site. You can see I have already some dashboards here. We can take a look at those later on, but I'll click on New, and then I'll give it a name. And we want to see for the last week. That's fine. So we click Save. So now I have a new dashboard, but it's empty, so I want to add widgets, and I want to add just a value showing my runtime for a specific UPS. So I'll select single value. Then I can give this widget a name, runtime, and then I need to add something into the widget. So what do I want to add? I want to add a sensor value. So here it gets a bit tricky because now it will list not only the devices but all the sensors that are available inside this location coding. So obviously that's a lot of sensors, but luckily I can filter on those. So I want to see my UPSs only. So now I filter for UPSs, but I don't see a list of UPSs. I see a list of sensors inside my UPSs. So I also need to search for remaining battery time remaining. And then I need to validate because here I have several UPSs, so I need to validate which UPS I'm looking at. So I have one down here, the EUT one, and I have my USPD one up here. So I'll select this one, and then I can put in a name. But since I have a name for the widget itself, I will delete this value here, so we just have the number, and then I can click add, and then I have my widget, and then I can click save, and now I have a small dashboard called dashboard training with one widget with one sensor value on. So I hope that makes sense. Just a single sensor value. So that's pretty simple and straight to do. If I want to do something more advanced, what is my current total load on my A feed and my B feed on my my RACPDUs? So then I need to make a total or a sum of some sensor values. So I'll try to do that as well. So I want to go into edit mode and add a widget. And this time I will do it as a graph because I want to see the development of my total load on these two measurements. So I'll do a graph and I will call it IT load A plus B. And then I'll add a series of data, and this will be a sum because I want to take all the RACPDUs on my A feed in this small data center and combine their total load. So I need to select my sensors, and again I have a ton of sensors here, but luckily I can filter, so I'll select only my RACPDUs. And then I also need to select, if I can remember correctly, total output, total power. So here it gets a bit tricky because we need to have at least some idea about the naming of the sensor, what we're looking at. So we should be careful not to include this sensor called total power factor. Then I also need to figure out which RACPDU is, or which sensor is belonging to the A feed or the B feed. In this case, I know the data center so well, so I know it's the RACPDUs with a 1 in the name. So I will select this and 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 so on. But how to make sure I can click on save, and then it found 14 sensors, luckily. So I will call this A feed, and then I'll add another series that's also a sum. Select my sensors, and that will then be the B feed side, or the RACPDUs named 2. So RACPDU total power, and this one and this one. Also, if I could somehow multi-select, that would be nice. 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. Maybe that's 14. Let's see. No. Okay, it was only 13, so I need to find the last one. I don't want to do that now because of time constraints, but I'll put in a name on this one. So we have the A feed and the B feed, and then we add this widget. And because it's a graph, I want to move it up here, and then I want to give it a more wide look like this, and then save my dashboard. So here I have for 1 week, since 1 week I have the combined load on my A feed and my B feed as two sums of sensor values. So I think that's quite neat. So that was sum of sensor values and also graphs. Then we have use case. What is the average temperature in the data center? And how high was the temperature within the last 24 hours? And I will change that within the last week. So that's average and max. So let's see if we can figure that out. So we want to edit again, and we want to add a widget. And that's just a single value because first I want to show what was the highest temperature I had in this data center during the last week. So max temperature, add a value, and that will be the maximum of all my temperature sensors in my devices. So I want to do, I know I have, again, this requires some sort of knowledge on the data center. So let's see, do we have, I can't remember where, inlet, rack inlet. Unit rack inlet temperature. That's what I'm looking for. Unit rack inlet temperature. Right, so we have a lot of temperatures on the temperature probe, so I can select all of those and save, and I'll just delete that because we have the unit on, and then I click here. So then it will take all those sensors and find the one that is the highest at the moment. Right, so that's my value here. Then I also wanted to show what's the average temperature in the data center. So I'll do that as a graph, and give it a name, average temperature. And that should be an average, and select sensors, and here I will select inlet. No. Unit rack inlet temperature. Unit rack inlet temp. Right, so this is my temperature probes on the front of my racks there. And don't think I need this one. Could put it. Then we add that. And it's also a graph, so I will put that below my other graph and give it the same time span. So here we can click save, and now I have my average temperature over all these sensors during the last week. And I think this must be the current value at the moment. Right? Makes sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So I also have some KPIs in this data center, and one of them is I want to make sure that my temperature is, or my maximum temperature is not below or not above, let's say 26 degrees. So I want to display just some static values that gives me some information. So here, remember, we have the maximum temperature is at the moment 24.7. I want to compare that to my KPI. So I'll add a single value, and I want to add a static value, something that I decide. And I decide that this should be 26. It should be a Celsius. I don't want to put any legend here. So like this. Then it fell down here, so let's move it up if we can to here. So save that. Now I have just a static value that I can compare to a sensor value, for instance.
Chris, can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
I really like this. Could we merge the temp KPI 26 degree on the same widget as the max temperature? so that we can kind of see like the 24.7 degrees, and below we would see 26, which is the maximum it can reach.
Good question. Not sure. We can try. So no, because this is just a single value. What if I do? I don't think I can have two single numbers in one. Or maybe no, because I can add a calculation. We'll get back into that later, but that will just still give me one single value. So I think the answer to that is no. The next question you might have is, what if my maximum temperature is above this degree? Can we put in a threshold on the maximum temperature? And I don't think we can do that either, because this is not a device. It's just something it is displaying. Right.
And we can do alarm configuration anyway in the gateway.
Yeah.
Okay.
But what we can do is we can put in, at least in a static form, some sort of threshold on a graph like this. So I'll do it on the average temperature. So we can edit that. And 23. So I can add a series here. That is just a static value, so I could call that threshold and select that it should be 23.7. Like that. So that's something we can do. But of course, it's not the threshold that is reading from the gateway. It's something that I have to manually set here. But this is maybe a crude workaround somehow.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good. Okay, so let's jump into some of the advanced stuff. So can we calculate a simple PUE? And a simple PUE is defined, or in my definition, because you can do PUEs on a very, very high level, complex level, as anybody who has touched on energy efficiency knows. But the simple version is simply, what is the total load of my data center and how much of that load am I using on my IT equipment, on my servers? So we want to make a total load, so that would be the load of all our UPSs. We want to divide that with the load of all of our rack PDUs, and then we will get a PUE out of that. So we need to do 2 times summaries and then divide that with each other. So let's see if I can remember how to do that, because it's been a few weeks. So I want to edit and I want to add a widget, and this is a single value. My PUE is just a value, PUE. Then I want to add a value, and that will be the sum of the load on my UPSs. So select sensors, filter on UPS, and then we want total output so this one, and this is 0, and this is 118. This UPS has some sort of unit error on its sensor value, so I don't want to use that. So 6 megawatt is probably a bit overrated, but we'll take these 3. So that's my UPS load. Then I want to add a I want to add, what is it that I want to do? I want to add a sum, so I want to add some more sensors below my divisor, and that should be my 28 RAGPDUs, right? So go filter, go RAGPDU, total, power. Yeah, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one. And then, of course, we need to verify that we have all of them included. And now we have a problem, because I can see that this number is bigger than the. No, we don't. So I will do a division. So I take these 3 sensors divided by the sum of these 28. And then there's no unit on a PoE, and then we click add, and here we have it. So this might not seem as something, but this is pretty cool that we can calculate a PoE and show that on a dashboard, because this is something that a lot of customers have been asking for. Not doable on Data Center Expert previously, because we could not divide 2 numbers with each other, but we can do that now. We can even do this as a graph, so we can have a sort of historical simple PoE. So that's pretty cool, and I think very, very useful. Then we go back. So that was my use cases. It was possible, yes. So some of the tips I would like to share is use the filters when you search for sensors. We can use 2 operators, as we saw on the PoE, but we can only use 2. So we can divide or summarize or subtract 2 numbers or 2 groups of numbers, but that's what we can do. But it gives us a lot of flexibility. Then I discovered something here. It's a bit small in this screen, but these 2 graphs are showing the same time span, 1 week. But because one of the sensors or legends has a really, really long text, it seems like the lower graph stops 1 day before the top one, and it doesn't. It's just more compressed, and that's due to the length of the legend. So this is something we as dashboard designers should take care of, or at least be aware of, that can affect the graphical view of our graphs.